Ben Wilson sat in his small kitchen, stirring sugar into his evening tea. The clock on the wall showed 11:43 p.m. Outside his window, the suburban street was quiet and dark. Most of his neighbors were already asleep. Ben liked these peaceful moments at the end of each day. They helped him forget about his boring job at the research lab and his empty apartment. He was 28 years old and lived alone. His life had become very predictable. Wake up at 7 in the morning, go to work, come home, eat dinner, watch television, and sleep. Every day was the same. Sometimes Ben wondered if this was all there was to life. He had dreams once. Big dreams about exploring space and meeting aliens from other worlds. But those dreams seemed foolish now. Ben took a sip of his tea and opened his laptop. He had emails to answer for work tomorrow. The screen glowed blue in the dim kitchen light. He typed slowly, responding to messages about lab equipment and research schedules. Nothing exciting ever happened in his life anymore. Then the doorbell rang. Ben looked up from his laptop screen. Who would visit him this late at night? He never had visitors, especially not after 11 o'clock. His heart started beating a little faster. Maybe it was an emergency. Maybe something was wrong with one of his neighbors. He walked to the front door and looked through the small window. The porch light was on, but he could not see anyone standing there. That was strange. The doorbell rang again, and this time the sound was different. It seemed to have music in it, like a gentle song instead of the usual buzzing noise his doorbell made. Ben unlocked the door and opened it slowly. He expected to see Mrs. Chen from next door, or maybe the pizza delivery guy who sometimes got addresses mixed up. Instead, he saw nothing but the empty porch and the dark street beyond. "Hello," he called out softly. "Is someone there?" The air in front of him began to shimmer like heat waves on a summer day. Slowly, a figure became visible. Ben's mouth fell open and his teacup slipped from his hand, crashing on the floor behind him. Standing before him was a woman unlike any he had ever seen. She was very tall, at least 7 feet, with skin that looked like it was made of crystal. Light seemed to move under her skin like tiny stars dancing. Her hair was long and silver, flowing around her shoulders like liquid metal. She wore robes that changed color as she moved, shifting from deep blue to purple to green. But her eyes were what made Ben's heart stop. They were large and kind, with a gentle glow that reminded him of moonlight. When she looked at him, he felt like she could see straight into his soul. There was something familiar about those eyes, something that made his chest feel tight with emotion he could not name. "Hello, Ben," the woman said. Her voice was soft and musical, like a whisper that carried the sound of wind chimes. "Do not be afraid." Ben's knees felt weak. He gripped the door frame to keep from falling down. This could not be real. People like this did not exist. They only existed in science fiction movies and books. Yet here she was, standing on his ordinary porch in his ordinary neighborhood. "How do you know my name?" Ben managed to ask. His voice came out as a squeak. The woman smiled, and her whole face lit up like sunrise. "I know many things about you, Ben Wilson. I know you work at the Peterson Research Institute. I know you study alien biology, even though you have never met a real alien before tonight. I know you eat the same sandwich for lunch every day because you are afraid to try new things. And I know you dream about the stars every night before you fall asleep." Ben felt dizzy. How could she know these things about him? He had never told anyone about his dreams, not even his closest friends. "Who are you?" he whispered. "My name is Queen Zara," she said, stepping closer to the door. "I am the ruler of the Andromedian Collective, a group of worlds very far from here. I have traveled across 3 galaxies to find you, Ben. I have been searching for you for 5 long years. 5 years. Ben's mind was spinning. 5 years ago, his life had been different. 5 years ago, he had been working on his graduate degree in 5 years ago, he had been part of something important, something that changed everything. Then suddenly, it was over, and he tried to forget it ever happened. "Yes," Queen Zara said softly. 5 years since the diplomatic mission ended. 5 years since you chose to stay on Earth instead of coming with me. 5 years since we said goodbye." The memories came flooding back to Ben like a dam breaking. The spaceship, the dying people, the cure they found together, the connection he felt with this beautiful, impossible woman. The choice he made that broke both their hearts. "Zara," he breathed, and suddenly everything made sense. She reached out and touched his face with her long, delicate fingers. Her skin was warm despite looking like crystal. "I have missed you every day since you left," she whispered. "My people have missed you too. We need you, Ben. It is time to return home." Ben stepped back into his apartment, his legs shaking. Queen Zara followed him inside, her tall form filling the small space with gentle light. She closed the door behind them with care, as if she understood that what they were about to discuss needed privacy. "Please sit down," Ben said, pointing to his old couch. "I think I need to sit down too." Zara settled gracefully onto the couch, her robes flowing around her like water. Ben sat in his favorite chair across from her, his hands trembling as the memories became clearer. 5 years felt like yesterday and forever at the same time. "Tell me what you remember," Zara said softly. "I want to hear it from your perspective." Ben closed his eyes and let his mind travel back to 2020. He had been 23 then, working on his master's degree in xenobiology at the university. Most people thought his field of study was pointless because no aliens had ever been discovered. Ben did not care what they thought. He believed life existed beyond Earth, and he wanted to be ready when humanity finally made contact. I was at the lab when Professor Martinez got the call, Ben began, opening his eyes to look at Zara. The government wanted xenobiology experts for something classified. They would not tell us what it was, just that we needed to come immediately. Zara nodded, her silver hair catching the light from his kitchen. The first contact protocols were activated when our ship appeared near your moon. Your world's leaders were not sure if we came in peace. Ben remembered the bus ride to the secret facility. He had been so excited and nervous. All his life, he had dreamed of meeting aliens, and suddenly it was really happening. The facility was huge and underground, filled with soldiers and scientists running around with serious faces. When they brought us to the ship, I could not believe my eyes, Ben continued. It was beautiful, like a giant crystal floating in space. And when I met your people for the first time, I thought I was dreaming. The Andromedians had been unlike anything humans had imagined. They were tall and elegant, with crystal-like skin that seemed to hold starlight. They moved with grace, and spoke in musical voices that made beautiful harmonies. But despite their beauty, Ben could see that something was terribly wrong. Your people were dying, Ben said quietly. The quantum plague was spreading through your worlds like a shadow. I had never seen anything so sad. Zara's eyes grew dim with the memory. We had already lost 3 billion of our people. Our best scientists and doctors could not find a cure. The plague attacked our quantum essence, the very thing that made us who we were. We came to Earth hoping that a younger species might see something we had missed. Ben remembered walking through the medical bay of the Andromedian ship. The sick people lay in chambers that looked like giant soap bubbles filled with soft light. Their skin had lost its glow, and many could barely speak. The Earth scientists worked alongside Andromedian doctors, but nothing they tried seemed to help. I felt so useless, Ben said. Everyone else was so much smarter than me. The other scientists had years of experience. I was just a graduate student who read too many science fiction books. But that was exactly what we needed, Zara said, leaning forward. Do you remember what you said to me on the third day? Ben smiled slightly. He did remember. He had been sitting alone in the observation deck, feeling sorry for himself, when Zara found him. She had not been queen then, just a young woman whose family was dying from the plague. I said that maybe we were thinking about the problem wrong, Ben said. Everyone was treating the plague like a regular disease that needed medicine to cure it. But you told me that your people were beings of pure harmony and balance. And you suggested something no one else had thought of, Zara said, her voice growing excited. You said we should try to fix the harmony instead of fighting the disease. Ben had felt foolish suggesting it, but he knew that music therapy helped humans heal from many illnesses. If the Andromedians were beings of harmony, maybe they needed their natural rhythm restored, instead of foreign medicine pumped into their bodies. The other scientists thought I was crazy, Ben laughed. But you listened to me. You believed in my idea. Working together, Ben and Zara had created something completely new. They combined human music therapy with Andromedian quantum healing chambers. Ben played simple Earth melodies while Zara used her people's technology to translate the sound into quantum frequencies that could heal their damaged essence. The first patient who recovered was your little brother, Ben said softly. Do you remember how he sat up in his healing chamber and started singing? Zara's eyes filled with tears that looked like liquid diamonds. That was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. And it was all because of you, Ben, because you saw what we could not see, because you understood that sometimes the simplest solutions are the most powerful. The cure had spread across the Andromedian worlds like a song of hope. Billions of lives were saved because a young human student dared to think differently. But more than that, Ben and Zara had formed a connection that went deeper than friendship or even love. They understood each other in ways that seemed impossible between two different species. When the diplomatic mission ended, Zara said, I asked you to come home with me. I wanted you to see our worlds, to meet our people, to be part of our family. Ben looked down at his hands, and I said no. I was scared, Zara. I thought I would not fit in your world. I thought it was better to stay where I belonged. But you never belonged just to Earth, Zara whispered. You belonged to both our worlds. And when you stayed behind, you took part of my heart with you. Zara stood up from the couch and walked to Ben's small window. She looked out at the quiet street with its neat rows of houses and streetlights. Her crystal skin reflected the soft glow from outside, making her look like a living constellation. Your world is so peaceful, she said quietly. I remember thinking that the first time I came here. Earth feels safe and warm, like a song that never ends. Ben joined her at the window. Standing next to her, he felt small but also strangely complete, as if a missing piece of himself had finally returned. But something has changed in your worlds, hasn't it? Something bad is happening. Zara turned to face him, and Ben could see fear in her beautiful eyes. Yes, Ben, something terrible has begun. We call it the Silence Wars. Though there are no armies fighting and no weapons being fired, it is worse than any war our people have ever known. She moved her hand through the air, and suddenly the space above Ben's coffee table filled with tiny points of light. It was a miniature galaxy, spinning slowly with thousands of stars twinkling like diamonds. Ben gasped at the beauty of it. This is the Andromedian Collective, Zara explained. Our worlds span across 3 spiral arms of our galaxy. We have lived in peace and harmony for millions of years. As Ben watched, some of the stars began to fade and disappear. Dark spots spread through the galaxy like ink dropping into clear water. The darkness consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty space where once there had been light and life. What is that? Ben whispered, horrified by what he was seeing. We call it the Void, Zara said, her voice heavy with sadness. It appeared 3 years ago at the edge of our galaxy. At first, we thought it was a natural phenomenon, perhaps a new type of black hole, but we were wrong. This is something far worse. The miniature galaxy continued to show the Void's progress. Star systems vanished one by one, and the darkness grew larger with each passing moment. Ben could see that at this rate, the entire galaxy would be consumed within a few more years. The Void does not just destroy matter, Zara continued. It consumes everything. Light, sound, energy, even the quantum fabric of space itself. When a world is touched by the Void, it simply stops existing. No explosion, no debris, nothing. It is as if those places never were. Ben felt a chill run down his spine. How many people have been lost? 47 billion souls, Zara said softly. Entire civilizations that took millions of years to grow and develop, gone in moments. We have tried everything, Ben. Our most powerful weapons pass right through the Void as if it were not there. Our greatest scientists cannot even study it because their instruments stop working when they get close. The holographic galaxy faded away, leaving Ben's living room feeling suddenly small and ordinary. He sat back down in his chair, trying to process what Zara had told him. The numbers were too big to really understand. 47 billion people, all gone. Why are you telling me this? Ben asked, though he had a feeling he already knew the answer. Zara sat down across from him again, leaning forward with hope in her eyes. Because our scientists have discovered something amazing. The Void feeds on order and predictability. It consumes things that follow patterns and rules. Our technology is too perfect, too logical. The Void can predict how our machines work and neutralize them before they can do anything. Ben was beginning to understand, but humans are different. Exactly, Zara said, her voice growing excited. Human consciousness does not follow the same quantum patterns as other species we have met. Your thoughts are chaotic and unpredictable in the most wonderful way. You make choices based on emotions and instincts that no computer could calculate. You find solutions in places where logic says no solutions should exist. Ben remembered how he had solved the quantum plague crisis. The other scientists had used complex equations and advanced theories, but Ben had simply listened to his heart and suggested music therapy. It had been illogical and unscientific, yet it worked. Our quantum researchers believe that human consciousness might be able to interact with the Void in ways that our technology cannot, Zara continued. But we need someone who understands both human and Andromedian science. Someone who has worked with our people before and knows how our minds connect. You need me, Ben said quietly. Zara reached across the space between them and took his hands in hers. Her skin was warm and smooth, and Ben felt energy flowing between them like electricity made of starlight. I need you, she said, not just as a scientist, but as the person who saved my people once before. The person who taught us that sometimes the answer is not found in our laboratories, but in our hearts. Ben looked into her eyes and saw not just the fear of losing her worlds, but also something deeper. He saw love and trust and hope that had survived 5 years of separation. He saw a connection that had never really been broken, no matter how far apart they had been. If I come with you, Ben said slowly, there is no guarantee that I can help. I am just one person. I might not be able to do anything against something as powerful as this Void. Zara smiled, and for a moment the fear left her eyes completely. Ben Wilson, you taught my people something very important 5 years ago. You showed us that one person with a good heart and an open mind can change everything. You proved that the most powerful force in the universe is not technology or weapons, but the willingness to try something new and believe in impossible things. Ben felt his heart racing. Outside his window, the quiet suburban street looked the same as always. But inside his apartment, everything had changed. The safe, boring life he had built for himself suddenly felt like a prison. Beyond his door waited the stars and adventures he had dreamed about since childhood. When do we leave? He asked. Ben packed his belongings quickly while Zara waited patiently in his living room. He did not own many things, but choosing what to take to another galaxy felt strange and overwhelming. In the end, he filled one small bag with clothes, his laptop, and a photo of his parents. Everything else seemed unimportant compared to the mission ahead. Are you ready? Zara asked as he returned to the living room. Ben looked around his apartment one last time. The place had been his home for 3 years, but now it felt like someone else's life. Yes, I think so. They walked outside together into the cool night air. Ben expected to see a spaceship waiting in his yard, but the street looked completely normal. Zara smiled at his confused expression. We must be careful, she explained. Your world is not ready for open contact yet. My ship is waiting beyond your moon, hidden from your satellites and telescopes. Zara raised her hand and spoke in the musical language of her people. The air around them began to shimmer like heat waves. Ben felt a strange tingling sensation, and suddenly they were no longer standing on his front porch. They were floating in space, surrounded by stars and the beautiful blue curve of Earth below them. Ben gasped and instinctively held his breath, but then realized he could breathe normally. Some kind of energy field surrounded them, protecting them from the vacuum of space. It was the most amazing thing he had ever experienced. "Welcome aboard the Harmony's Edge," Zara said proudly. Ben looked around and realized they were standing in a vast chamber made entirely of crystal. The walls curved gracefully overhead, and through the transparent floor he could see the intricate inner workings of the ship. Everything glowed with soft, pulsing light that reminded him of a heartbeat. "Your ship is alive," Ben said with wonder. "In a way, yes," Zara replied. "Andromedian vessels are grown rather than built. They respond to our thoughts and emotions. The ship becomes part of our family." As they walked through the corridors, Ben met other members of Zara's crew. There was Chief Scientist Nova, whose skin sparkled with tiny points of light like a living constellation. Navigation Officer Ren had silver hair that moved as if underwater, and eyes that changed color with his mood. Medical Officer Kira was smaller than the others, with crystal formations growing from her shoulders like wings. Each crew member greeted Ben with warmth and respect. They had heard stories about the human who saved their people from the quantum plague. To them, Ben was already a hero, even though he still felt like an ordinary person from a small town. "Show me everything," Ben said to Nova as they entered the main laboratory. "I want to understand exactly what we are dealing with." Nova activated a series of holographic displays that filled the room with three-dimensional maps and charts. Ben saw star charts showing the void's movement, quantum readings that made no sense, and recorded images from the few ships that had managed to escape after encountering the darkness. "The void behaves unlike anything in our physics textbooks," Nova explained, her voice carrying harmonics of frustration and fear. "It does not follow the laws of thermodynamics or quantum mechanics. When our probes approach it, they simply cease to exist. No energy signature, no debris, nothing." Ben studied the data carefully, his mind racing as he tried to understand the impossible phenomenon. "What happens to the space where the void passes?" "That is the strangest part," Ren said, joining their conversation. "The space itself is not destroyed. New matter and energy eventually flow in to fill the emptiness. But everything that was there before is gone forever, as if it never existed." Over the next several days, as Harmony's Edge traveled toward the Andromedian Collective, Ben worked closely with the science team. They shared everything they knew about the void, while Ben taught them about human approaches to problem solving. "Your people think very differently than we do," Kira observed during one of their sessions. "When we encounter a problem, we analyze it logically and systematically. You humans seem to jump to conclusions that have no logical basis, yet somehow you are often correct." Ben laughed. "We call it intuition. Sometimes our emotions and instincts guide us to answers that pure logic cannot find." He began teaching them human concepts like brainstorming, where wild and seemingly impossible ideas were encouraged. The Andromedian scientists were fascinated by the way humans could find patterns in chaos and create order from randomness. "Perhaps that is what we need," Nova said thoughtfully. "The void feeds on predictability and order. But if we could approach it with the kind of creative chaos that humans possess, maybe we could surprise it." As they worked together, Ben noticed something interesting happening. The partnership between human and Andromedian thinking was creating entirely new approaches to the problem. His chaotic creativity combined with their perfect logical systems produced ideas that neither species could have developed alone. "I have been thinking about music therapy again," Ben said during one late-night session. "When we cured the quantum plague, we used sound frequencies to restore harmony to your people's quantum essence. What if the void is like a disease affecting the fabric of space itself?" Zara, who had been listening quietly, suddenly sat up straighter. "You think we should try to heal space rather than fight the void?" "Exactly," Ben said, excitement growing in his voice. "Maybe the void is not an enemy to be defeated, but a symptom of something wrong with reality itself. If we could restore the natural harmony of space-time, the void might simply disappear." Nova pulled up new holographic displays, showing the quantum structure of normal space compared to areas touched by the void. "This could work," she said with growing excitement. "But it would require a massive harmonious frequency broadcast across multiple dimensions. And it would need to be guided by consciousness that the void cannot predict or neutralize," Ren added, looking directly at Ben. "Human consciousness." As Harmony's Edge approached the edge of Andromedian space, Ben could see the void in the distance. It looked like a growing patch of absolute nothingness, darker than the darkest night. But instead of feeling afraid, Ben felt ready for the challenge ahead. He was no longer just Ben Wilson from a small suburban town. He had become something new, a bridge between two worlds, carrying the hopes of billions of people who needed someone brave enough to try the impossible. The Harmony's Edge approached the edge of the void slowly and carefully. Through the crystal walls of the ship, Ben could see the absolute darkness that had consumed entire star systems. It was not black like the space between stars, but something far more terrible, a complete absence of everything that made reality real. Sensors are starting to fail, Ren reported from his navigation station. The void is interfering with our instruments. Ben stood next to Zara on the command deck, watching as the readings on their displays began to flicker and fade. His heart was beating fast, but he felt strangely calm. All the preparation over the past week had led to this moment. Remember the plan, Zara said softly to her crew. We stay exactly 1,000 kilometers from the void's edge. Any closer, and we risk being consumed. Nova activated the special equipment they had built during their journey. It was unlike anything the Andromedians had created before, a combination of their advanced quantum technology and Ben's understanding of human music therapy. The device looked like a giant crystal harp surrounded by spinning rings of pure energy. The harmonic resonance generator is ready, Nova announced. But Ben, are you sure about this? We have never attempted to merge human consciousness directly with our quantum systems. Ben took a deep breath and walked over to the center of the device. I have been thinking about this for days, he said. The void consumes everything that follows predictable patterns, but human emotions and creativity are truly random. If I can guide the harmonic frequencies with my consciousness, the void will not be able to predict or neutralize them. Zara joined him at the device, taking his hand in hers. You will not do this alone, she said firmly. Our bond proved 5 years ago that human and Andromedian minds can work together in ways that create something entirely new. We will face the void together. The other crew members took their positions around the chamber. Each of them placed their hands on crystal interfaces that connected them to the ship's living systems. Ben could feel their thoughts and emotions joining together like voices in a choir. Beginning quantum harmony sequence, Nova said. The device began to glow with soft pulsing light. Ben felt energy flowing through him as the Andromedian technology connected with his human consciousness. It was similar to what he had experienced 5 years ago when they cured the quantum plague, but much more powerful through the ship's sensors. Ben could perceive the fabric of space itself. He saw the mathematical beauty of reality, the way energy and matter danced together in perfect harmony. But where the void existed, there was only silence. It was like a song with all the music removed, leaving behind empty rhythm. I can feel it, Ben whispered, his voice filled with wonder. The void is not evil or malicious. It is just terribly, terribly lonely. Zara squeezed his hand tighter. What do you mean? It consumes everything because it is trying to find something that will stay with it, Ben explained. But everything it touches becomes silent and empty, just like itself. It does not know how to create or connect, only how to take. Ben began to hum a simple melody, something his mother used to sing to him when he was small. The harmonic resonance generator translated his song into quantum frequencies that spread outward toward the void. But instead of trying to fight or push against the darkness, Ben's melody reached out to it with compassion and understanding. The void seemed to pause in its endless expansion. For the first time in 3 years, it stopped moving forward. It is working, Ren said with excitement. The void's advance has halted completely. Ben continued to sing, and now Zara joined him with her musical Andromedian voice. Their combined harmony created something beautiful and unexpected, a song that bridged to completely different forms of consciousness. The other crew members added their voices as well, creating a chorus that resonated across multiple dimensions. The void began to change. Instead of consuming the song, it started to learn from it. Slowly, gradually, points of light began to appear in the absolute darkness. They were not stars or planets being restored, but something entirely new, nodes of creative potential where reality could grow and flourish in ways that had never existed before. Look, Kira said softly, pointing toward the viewing wall where the void had once spread its consuming darkness. New galaxies were being born, but these were not ordinary galaxies filled with predictable physics and natural laws. There were places where human imagination and Andromedian harmony had combined to create spaces where impossible things could happen. The process continued for hours as Ben and his new friend sang together. The void did not disappear completely, but it transformed into something wonderful, a creative force that generated new forms of beauty, instead of consuming existing ones. It had learned to sing its own song instead of silencing others. When the transformation was complete, Ben collapsed into Zara's arms, exhausted but filled with joy. Through the crystal walls of the ship, he could see dozens of new star systems being born, each one unique and miraculous. You did it, Zara whispered, tears of liquid starlight flowing down her crystal cheeks. You saved not just our worlds, but taught the universe itself how to create instead of destroy. 3 months later, Ben stood in the grand hall of the new Academy for Interspecies. Thanks for watching.